Hello, everybody, and welcome to number 22 of the 30 greatest checkmates of all time, or at least my favorite 30 checkmates of all time. Now, imagine you had an opponent that you played often, and you saw he made a particular move that allowed you to destroy him, a move or a move or two later. But you wanted to wait for the right time to play it. You wanted to wait for a big tournament where you could win a big trophy or get a title or maybe even win money. How long would you wait when you played this person a lot? Would you wait a month? Maybe 2 months? Would you wait a year? How about 2 years? Well, here's a game between two people I know, two very good players, where one waited 2 years to play this particular move on somebody. It was a position a lot like the one you're looking at right now. And in this position, there was a way for white to really destroy black. So let's not get too ahead of ourselves and get to the position. So now, as we'll take a look, I want to tell you a little bit about the story. So first, the person we're talking about is Mr. Terry Meeks, a Learning Through Games teacher, very good player who has won against me. He and Brian Benson had both beaten each other. And of course, there's Mr. Benson, a very good and exciting player in Indiana who makes any game exciting, really. You could play kind of a boring opening on him, and he would find a way to make it very tactical. He would always find a way to attack or get aggressive and come at your king. So these two had played each other many times. And usually Terry played pawn to e4, like this, pawn to e4, and Brian played the Scandinavian attack, also known as the center counter. So here's the game. Finally, they played in a big tournament, and Terry was playing white, and Brian Benson was playing black. Take, and you could take with the queen here, and that's just the regular Scandinavian. Oops. You could just play your queen and take that pawn, and maybe this knight would come out and threaten it. But Brian kind of mixed it up, and usually lately he had been playing what you call the modern Scandinavian, when he brought the knight out, except you didn't have that extra knight there. That would be too much. Mr. Dean is having some trouble with this here. Okay. So then, after that, pawn to d4 is what Terry played. And you can play a lot of good moves here. You could play probably bishop to b5 check also. After pawn to d4, Brian played pawn c6. Brian never minded gambiting pawns to get some attack or get some aggression going. He didn't mind that at all, and this is the case where that happened. In fact, there were some games where I tried to gambit on him and he wouldn't let me. After pawn takes, you of course want to take back with the knight, because taking with the pawn would give you kind of pawn islands. It's good to get your minor pieces out when you're taking back instead of a pawn in most situations. After knight takes, knight to f3. Then Brian found an aggressive spot to put this bishop. Can you guys guess? Go ahead and pause the video and tell me where you should put this dark squared bishop. Okay, if you said bishop to b4, you're correct. The bishop's threatening to take the knight, and then something, probably the queen actually, would then take this pawn. So after that happened, pawn to c3 is what white played. And Brian, playing black, moved his queen out of the way, preparing for a queenside castle. Now all these moves I think are pretty good. They could be play some different moves too, but I think so far both players are playing well, and they had all played this same line before. After queen c7, white plays bishop to e2, and then black queenside castles, aiming the black rook indirectly at the queen, and this is important. Now here comes a move that kind of changes things, queen to b3. Now, just to show you what white might be thinking, a good move for black would probably be to move the pawn here. That could be a pretty good move, and that would cause some trouble for white, adding pressure because pawn, of course, cannot take because rook would take the queen. So white's moving his queen out of the way, so he's not on the same file as the rook. And he's got a little threat here. And so at least you can see why white would play a move like that. But Brian had played this before where it looked like to him he would win at the very least a pawn. And he would take here. But before we look at that, bishop f3 takes f3 is not the best move. What do you think would be a really good move here for black? Go ahead and pause the video and come back if you can. Okay. If you said pawn e5 is good, yes, I think that would be a pretty good move. For one, the queen's guarding this, and you're pressuring the pawn. That's what I believe computer gives us the best move in this position. But that wasn't to be, and black went ahead and played bishop takes knight, bishop takes bishop, and now this looks like it's very good because if pawn takes back, the queen will come down and take the bishop. But here's where the moves happen. Now, I'm not sure if the biggest surprise was when Terry took this knight or if it was the move that happened a couple moves after. It might have all been a surprise. It's been a few years, but it was a big 2-year surprise, I know that. So what happened was Terry went ahead and took the knight, and then Brian came down, took the bishop check. Looks like he's skewering the rook. But the skewer doesn't really work because look at this double pressure between the queen and the bishop. That would be checkmate there. So I'm sure Brian, of course, knew that. And after the king moves up, Brian went all the way back to protect it. And probably in his analysis, where he had been seeing this several moves ahead, he thought, oh, this is okay. But do you see a devastating move here? Now, I know at least this move was one of the surprises. Do you guys see it? What is the great move here for white? Pause the video if you need to. Okay. I hope you guys saw this move. It's pretty awesome. Rook to c1. Pinning the queen. And you might think, oh, the rook's for free. But remember, it isn't. If you take that rook, you wouldn't be smiling for long because that would be checkmate. So what do you do here? Well, there's not a whole lot to do. You cannot block the pin with anything. You pretty much have to lose the queen. Now, I'm not sure how this game exactly ended. I've heard different things. Perhaps Brian resigned here because mate was quick, but sometimes he played it out quite a bit. So I had heard maybe it went like this. Rook protects, but queen check, king over. There's a checkmate in 2. Do you guys see it? Checkmate in 2 moves. Pause it if you need to. All right, if you said queen a8, you're correct. Check. The only way to stop it is a block. And what's that final move? Yeah, either rook takes or queen takes will make the mate. So a 2-year wait for an extraordinary game. Awesome game. And I had seen those moves before, and I thought, oh, I can't wait to be there when that happens. But I wasn't there. I just heard about it. And Terry, of course, I think won a big prize in that tournament. So good for him. And like I say, Brian and Terry are both kind of Indiana legends who played some great moves and great games over the years. But the game I remember most is the wait. All right, guys, we'll see you next time. And keep on battling in chess.